Good planning is a prerequisite for sound scheduling. Have we determined the job content? Next, to develop the work plan. This entails a sequence of activities. Critical path analysis can support the element. Are you familiar with critical path analysis? Yes? Critical path analysis? No? What it's looking at is what we have to do to not impact the timeline. For example, we bring the aircraft in the hangar. Can we start before we bring the aircraft in the hangar? No. So that is on a critical path. We must bring the aircraft in the hangar. Can we work on the engine and the cabin at the same time? Yes. We can work on the engine and the cabin. So they're not on the critical timeline. And so as we go through the processes, activities that are on the critical timeline have to be accomplished. So for example, the aeroplane is coming in for 3 days. We have a task that is going to take 2 days. That task, if we do not start it by at least the beginning of the second day, we're going to be late. You start that 2-day task on the 3rd day, and I can tell you straight away, without my crystal ball, we're going to be a day late, guys. How do you know? Because it's a 2-day task. So critical path will say that this task is a 2-day task on a 3-day check, has a 1-day float. Means that any time from the beginning of the check to the beginning of the second day, we can start that task without impacting the critical timeline of the activity. And that's the background, that's the basis. Basically understanding what impacts what. For example, you cannot do this check until you've done the first check. It has to follow. Therefore, that check followed by that check is on the critical path. And when we have to do both of them depends on how long it takes within the context of the overhaul availability. And by looking at critical path, by analysing, you can actually bring a check into a tighter time frame. If we don't manage the critical path, then the reverse happens. We add, and for example, spares. We need spares at a certain time. If you do not give me the spares today, I cannot finish the work in the fuel tank, I cannot close the fuel tank, I cannot fill the fuel tank with fuel, therefore we cannot finish the check, we cannot do the engine run. How long is it going to take you? Well, when you give me the spare, it's going to take me 1 day to fit the spare. It's going to take me 1 day to close the fuel tank. It's going to take me 1 day to test, and then we're ready for the engine runs. So it's the last day of the check, so we're now 2 days late. And this is understanding the critical path. And when we're managing material during a maintenance check, we can manage the material in accordance with the critical path understanding.